Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time talking about handling those difficult, if not illegal questions, certainly improper questions that may arise during your time with the employer. Now, first of all, people are human, and they will do things and say things that you just kind of shake your head and say, oh, how did that occur to you? Why do you bring that up? You can't sit there and say, well, I refuse to answer, or you can't say no comment, can't say none of your business. I mean, you can, but I think if you do, you create this huge wedge there. Now, not all employers purposefully ask very inappropriate questions. Some will, and it's designed to shake you up a little bit. It's not the fairest way to do it, but sometimes that happens. I would argue that most of the time it's simply born of ignorance. They don't necessarily mean a whole lot by it. If anything, and again, maybe out on a limb with this, if anything, it's almost not a bonding sort of question they throw at you, but they're at a point where they feel pretty comfortable with you. It's almost as though they're envisioning you in that position. Just as I wouldn't approach a total stranger and ask them about how they felt about a current event going on in the news or something in politics or religion or something that's very polarizing oftentimes. But if I had somebody that I felt more comfortable with, I would ask their opinion about it. Now, I may not agree with them, but I'd at least ask it. Now, granted, it's not to be done during an interview, but sometimes it happens. So the question for you as a candidate becomes, all right, what do I do now? And here's a way to handle it. In other talks, whether it's library or workshop, we've talked about cushions. This is a time for a cushion. So, given the politics of the day or given the big event in the news, there are always going to be three sides to every story. You know, it's one of those, that's sort of how it works. What I want to do, let's come up with something that is relatively recent over the last, let's say, 10 years or so, and probably something that'll continue on for decades, if not longer, and that is the United States dealing with terrorism and the threat to our economy and our way of life and our engagement around the world and that sort of thing, and the ripple effect of that throughout the world. Let's say the employer has a newspaper sitting in front of him right here in front of him, and the headline story talks about some kind of big activity dealing with terror or war or something like that. Especially if it deals with the president's action regarding that. That's polarizing. They ask you, how do you feel about that? Or what's your view on that war or on that conflict or on that explosion or whatever? You don't want to answer, even though you may have an opinion. I don't feel it benefits you to answer it. Or they may ask, well, what do you think about this particular public figure? Again, don't step in it. Don't take the bait. What you'll want to do is say things along this line. You might want to say, well, that's something certainly that has strongly held views on both sides. And I'd be curious what your view of it is. So I turn around and ask the employer what their view is. I cushion it first, and we've talked about cushions, by saying there are multiple views on this, or there are views on both sides, and I'm curious what you think about it. The fact that the other person brought it up probably means that they will talk about it if only given the opportunity. Not unlike the salary issue. When they ask you what kind of money are you expecting, if you can turn it around and ask them, you might be surprised how often they'll actually come out and tell you what the range is. Very often this will happen as well when it deals with war, politics, or anything polarizing. They'll come out and they'll tell you. Now, just by you asking the question of them, they may realize, you know what, we're going down a path we don't really need to go down, and they'll drop it. You win. That's perfect. You don't want to come out and talk because you don't know which way they like. And besides, they may be testing you in this sense, and they're not necessarily listening to what you say, but how you say it. How would you come across in front of, let's say, a customer of theirs if this sort of situation came up, or something that could be potentially confrontational? So they're sort of testing you a little bit. Here is a chance to definitely avoid answering the specifics of the question, turn it around, and ask them what they thought. And that should help you. Dealing with those difficult, improper, if not illegal, interview questions. It's going to wrap it up for this in our Edge Library series. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.